Two, one. Hello, we are live. Hello, and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a business podcast on global PropTech, where we talk to PropTech leaders, founders, and CEOs from all over the globe and learn from them how they build and manage successful PropTech companies. Today, I'm privileged to have with me Boudewjin Groot, who's the CEO and co-founder of Proprli. Properly is a prop tech company that revolutionizes the way real estate owners and property managers collaborate, eliminating manual reporting and Excels. It provides real-time insights for governance and compliance of all assets. And as you can imagine, I read this template description from the website, and we have the CEO itself today, Bao, who is going to distill into the details of what that business does. But before we welcome him, just a note to all our listeners out here. We just wanted to announce that we have hit 1,800 subscribers, which is fairly a good number given where we started from, since PropTech is still a niche topic. It's a niche segment, niche content. Achieving 1,800 is a good landmark, I would say. But keep the support and the love coming, and please hit that subscribe button, because we have some exciting guests coming in the days to come, just as we had in the past. And today we have Bao with us as well. So with that, let's welcome Bao. Bao, welcome to PropTechBuzz. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. And first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show and inviting me to tell a bit about my journey. Yeah.
Right, and the privilege is mine, and I have followed Proprli for some time. Very, very curious, and that's how I approached you. And thank you for agreeing to be on my podcast. So before we get into Proprli, it will be good context setter to know a bit about your personal background and then your founding story of Proprli.
All right. Let me introduce myself. My name is Boudewjin Groot. I've always worked in the commercial real estate industry, studied architecture actually, but wanted to go into a bit more of the business side of real estate. So first worked at Savills in Amsterdam. Pardon me. In Amsterdam, worked there for a couple of years, and then moved to London to work for a private equity investor called Meriton Asset Management. And there I was responsible, together with one other colleague. We were responsible for the Dutch portfolios and the Portuguese portfolios. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got two young children, and I currently live just outside of London. But I frequently travel back and forth to the Netherlands, where the larger part of our team is based.
Excellent. And I'm always curious when I'm talking to founders. How did the idea germinate in your mind? Okay, and then from idea to building the startup, that story is always fascinating to me. So could you help us through that journey on how the idea germinated and how did you build this?
Yeah, well, when I worked at Savills, I was started as a junior and then became a consultant. I always thought, like, wow, there's so much data and information in this industry where that we're actually not using or capturing at all. But couldn't really find like the pain point to solve back then. Moved to Meriton, where I was responsible for managing these portfolios, and the idea really originated from a personal pain point. So I was managing all these buildings, but being based in London and the buildings being in another country, you're heavily reliant on third-party property managers and third-party asset managers. So they basically have one version of all the data, and you have one version of your own data, and the only way to communicate is through picking up the phone and emailing. And that's one thing that I've always learned in the real estate industry, is that they say the caller is faster, so pick up the phone and call them. But eventually, if you really break it down to first principles, if two parties work in two different systems, you're never going to be efficient or have the same insights. So that's really where it originates.
Okay. And not everybody acts on an idea. It takes a special person to actually act on an idea and turn that idea into an actual business. So how did that idea turn into a business?
I was in my I saw the prop tech industry come about like when working in London. I think London, being one of the the financial capitals in Europe, I think it was always a bit ahead of the adoption of technology in the Netherlands. So I used to implement a lot of tools in my own portfolios, and I was really missing one element, which was the whole technical and the whole relationship with the property managers. So that's something that I was looking for myself, and then it not being there, I just let's try to build this ourselves. But the founding story of Proprli, we started with three founders. So Koen Geesing, David Nagoro, and I. So Koen I knew from from university in the Netherlands. We both studied architecture, and he was living and working in London as well. And David was someone that we literally got to know, in London, and he was our software developer. So, looking back, we took way too much risk. It was absolutely crazy what we've done, but, without being that hopeful and stupid, we would never have done it, knowing what was, what was coming to us. So, the three of us, we quit our jobs at the same time. Which is nearly 5 years ago now, and we had I put my bonus into as a starting off capital into the company. We were renting in London, but as you know, rents in London are extremely expensive. So we were like, okay, we won't be able to sustain this. We need to get cheaper accommodation. But also, like, most of my network, my real estate network, was actually based in the Netherlands instead of London. So we thought, okay, all our prospective buyers will be in the Netherlands first. So let's move to Amsterdam, where I still had a flat there. So we literally, the three of us, moved into a 1-bed flat, and lived there for 6 months eventually. So David, never being in the Netherlands, we said, okay, you can have the bedroom, you sleep there. Koen slept in the living room, and I slept in the kitchen on the mattress. And that was literally the first 6 months of us founding the company. And nice. Yeah, we just, we had to be frugal because we only had, we didn't have much money back then. And we were pre-revenue, pre-first client, pre-first anything. David, well, we had one big, large, big desk in the living room, and all these screens on there, and we all sat at the same desk. David, being the developer, he always had his headphones on. We couldn't disturb him because he was literally building the first version of the platform from scratch all by himself. Right. And Koen and I were just, focused on building the pitch decks, presentations, cold calling people, just to get meetings in and pitching and just really going for it. But looking back, it was absolutely extremely stressful. We took way too much risk, and what I'm really, really grateful for is that the founding team is still together. And I think there were many instances where it was so much stress and difficulty that we nearly threw the towel into the ring, but we didn't, and we persevered. And now we're much further.
Nice. So I will come to what Proprli is today. But when you began, did you have the idea and the product clearly laid out, or did you have to validate your assumptions in the market and then do iterations to make it what it is today?
Very good question. And simple answer is no, absolutely not. So it all started out with the sort of idea of being, a LinkedIn for the real estate industry, and that then transformed to, okay, we actually need to solve a problem. And the first problem we tried to solve was property managers. They need to they have yearly budgets. They need to spend the budgets, and they have a lot of maintenance and capex that they spend on the building. Lift maintenance, new roof layers, windows, new refurbishments, you name it. And in order to do that, they need to get quotes from, if the works are above 25K, usually they need to get 3 quotes from 3 different contractors. So we were trying to solve that problem because, before Proprli, it was all being done through email and Excel files. And now it's all through one centralized platform. But, that pain point and the problem, it's just only one part of like daily work of a property manager. So, they weren't really adopting that as easily as we wanted. So then eventually we started looking at, okay, what does a property manager do, the entire week and the entire day? What is their really their pain point? So we really sat next to them on a daily basis to see, okay, what do you do? How do you do this? What is your pain, and how can we help you solve that pain? And then on the other side, having the other stakeholder, like the landlord, the owner of the real estate, the asset managers, on the same side. Like I had all my personal experience, but yeah, we interviewed a lot of people and asked them, like, okay, what are you missing? And that was just to have insight and the communication with property managers to know what's going on. No one wants to pick up the phone constantly and chase someone. Could you send me this overview of X data? That's not helpful. You're constantly waiting for information, and we're really bringing those two parties together.
Got it. So let's. So I'm sure it had gone through its own evolution over time. So what
Yeah.
is Properly today in its current form?
So yeah, we really position ourselves as the collaboration platform for owners and property managers. So for an owner gets like insights, transparency, continuity, a lot of data. And property managers, they have all the efficiency, they have the automated reporting, and that they're not being disrupted by their landlords constantly. Like, could you please send me this information? Because the landlord can actually see it in the same platform. They work together,
right?
And then, the USP is that once you have, as a landlord, when you have a question about certain data or a certain file or a certain building, you actually ask that question, and the communication is in the same platform instead of reverting back to email again or calling, right? So that really is what the difference is.
Got it. So I'm very curious to know, because the property management, the way property managers function is again very local and very different from geographies to geographies, because there are some geographies which are much more mature, they have better tool sets and stuff like that. So is there a significant difference on how the property management industry is technically enabled, say in Netherlands versus the UK? I'm also going to be asking you in which regions are you placed. But when you began, was there a significant difference between Netherlands and the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you see is that the property management industry in each country in Europe is slightly different in roles. So what are they actually responsible for in business model? So the pricing is different, and how much they can charge for their work is very different, and therefore also how much they can do for that, and then how much they adopt in technology it's very different as well. And then on top of that, you've got the different languages, different currencies. So yeah, it's not easy starting a startup in Europe, I think, in that perspective. Yeah.
But are the problems the same, like, or the problems are also different for different geographies? Like, fairly, I would assume that the problems are the same, right? Because the collaboration, the needs are the same.
So I can give a concrete example, right? So we're active in the Netherlands, Poland, and the United States.
Okay.
The Polish market works different to the Netherlands market in a way that in Poland, the property manager has external facility managers, like a different company that does part of the role that the property manager in the Netherlands does all by themselves. Right? So the property manager does much more, but actually gets paid much less, for the work. And the property manager in Poland is much more of a sort of overseeing role, where they have an external facility management company that does a lot of the work for them. So
Got it.
where you still have the same pain points in Poland and in the Netherlands, but the pain points are basically divided between two stakeholders in Poland, right? The property management company and the facility management company. And that actually took a couple months of time for us to work out, like, all right, what is happening here. And then once you know that, you can really focus on that and make sure that, all right, now I'm actually solving the problems for both parties instead of one. And by them collaborating better, you still get the same result eventually.
Got it. And you mentioned about the USA. Is USA significantly different than Poland and Netherlands?
Yeah, so we're only active in the US because a partner of us is sells our solution to their clients that they make smart hospitals. So we're at the beginning stages of that. So we don't have any our own teams in the US yet, but we're feeling the market through them, and I think they're a terrific partners. So we're really happy to work together with them. That's
Got it. So
ourselves. We're really focusing on Europe.
got it.
First.
Got it. So you mentioned about the problem space and then how you're solving. Do you want to delve a little deeper into the product that you are offering?
Yeah. So, like the problem really is that as an asset manager or as an owner, you just really want to have information, and because you work in two different systems, you don't always have access to that data. So you ask the property manager to send you certain data that they retrieve from their property management systems, and that's really where we differ to the legacy systems out there. Like, we're not property management system, but we're also not an asset management system. So we're the system where you can hold your weekly meetings with your property management company, where you can get all the updates, where you have insight into whatever is going on in your building, and you can leave all the communication and the feedback within that system as well. So imagine if you have 3 different property management companies working for your portfolio in the same country, in the Netherlands. They will all report in the same way. There's one best-in-class way of working, instead of every single individual sending you information in a different way. And that saves a lot of time and effort for asset managers, but it also alleviates like the way people are working.
Are there other players solving the same problem, or is this something that, because there are many players who are the PMS, the property management systems, okay? But this communication piece, this communication and collaboration piece, is something seems like very unique. Are there other players as well solving the same problem?
I haven't found any other platform that solely focuses on like this collaboration between these two parties, and that's, I think, we're not competing with property management systems. Like, we always say, like, look, you still need your property management system, and I really see that as like an accountancy system specifically designed for the real estate industry. In my mind, that's a property management system, and some systems can do much more than that, but it's always built with one stakeholder in mind, the property manager. And whilst you have a lot of property management companies that are different companies than their landlords, you still need to work together.
Right.
And if you really break it down to first principles again, it's like, if you work in different companies and you need to work together on a daily basis, why aren't you looking at the same data in the same platform? And that's like, our goal is to really make sure that every single email that they send between them actually goes through the platform, and it's communication through the platform instead of email or calling, right? So that's I think that's the difference. And or clients, they either use Yardi, Xerion, like the big property management systems out there. And we always tell them, like, please keep using that. It's really good software. You really need accountancy being done in your business. We're not that. But if you have any collaboration with your property manager, put this layer on top, and you have the continuity of your business secured.
Could you shed some light on the complete stack of products these people use? So they use a PMS for sure, okay?
Yeah.
And is there anything else that they use other than, of course, your communication collaboration tool?
Yeah, so you see that property managers, they really use the property management system. Then on the asset manager level, you have, especially because of ESG, you have different tools now as well, right? So from always, you always had your asset management system or Excel models. So we use at Marathon, I used Argus, is a very good expensive system for asset management. And then we had Excel models on top of that, where we calculated all the returns and all the reporting towards investors. Nowadays, with the whole move towards ESG and sustainability, you've got dedicated ESG reporting platforms as well, such as DeepKey, Measurable, Building Minds, Scalar. We're not that. We're not an ESG reporting platform, again, but we integrate with those. So all the data that, for instance, from your 10-year maintenance plans, all the capex you've spent on, you're spending on sustainability, repairing a new roof layer and increasing the insulation in your building. You want to know what's going on with those projects on a day-to-day basis. What is the budget versus actuals from those projects? We have that data, and we can easily send that across to all those ESG reporting platforms, such as DeepKey, etc., that I called, and make those platforms even more successful that they are.
Right.
But you just see that it's the ESG reporting platforms is not a platform where the property manager works on a daily basis to do their job. They just have to fill in the data to be able to report, and that's again an additional thing they need to do on a day-to-day basis. It takes a lot of time for them, but it's definitely necessary now. So we make that much easier.
Got it. So since it's a business podcast, right? So help us understand the acceptance or adoption of another tool, since they're already using a cluster of products. Are they receptive of new products being used or introduced, or they would like new products to be integrated through APIs within their existing systems? What has been the feedback from your customers?
Yeah, so to be honest, we always focused on the landlords as our ideal customer profile, and they were our first clients. Clients like listed REIT in the Netherlands, NSI, Schroders Capital, which is like a pan-European massive investment company. So they instructed their property managers, we've bought Proprli, you have to work through this. And they got all the benefits and all the continuity from that. But when it really started to take off for us was the moment when a property management company in the Netherlands said, look, we'll do this the other way around. We'll implement this ourselves across our entire portfolio, and we'll teach our clients this new way of working. We're not going to wait around for our clients to tell us this is how you should be working. No, we should teach them that, and that's that's been really, really helpful for us and really exciting. So that was Colliers International, actually, in the Netherlands. They had a great vision where they wanted. They still have a great vision of how they want their property management department to be entirely digitized before a certain year, and our solution was one of the platforms to do that. And they've been a great partner to us. Yeah.
Got it. So your sales pitch, your selling proposition is the convenience and number of hours saved. Is that how it is? Is that the value metric that?
No, it's you can break it down to that, but for landlords, it's much more just I just want to have the control of whatever is happening in my portfolio. Nowadays, with the whole war on talent, it's very difficult to get employees, and property management companies have this issue as well. So imagine if your property manager in one of your external property management companies leaves, and he works on 10 of your buildings, then a lot of internal knowledge is lost. The work is handed over to a new property manager. They need to find out how all these buildings work, all the the relationships with the suppliers, the maintenance companies, the tenants. That all takes time, and that can easily take 3 to 4 months time, and then they're basically being ramped up. And then you see they leave again because they become an asset manager, they become a project manager, they leave to a competitor. Right. So we have all that data, whatever they're working on, all that qualitative data in our platform. So first of all, the handover to the new property manager is instant. It's really easy. You can read all the communication with the asset managers, the tenants, the service providers in the same platform. And you have constant continuity of best-in-class property management.
Got it. Do you want to explain the ideal customer profiles, because there are so many kinds of landlords, right? So I suppose you are focused on commercial landlords only. Am I right?
Yes, we do service every single sector so like offices, retail, data centers, you name it.
Got it.
But I like our ideal customer is actually a landlord that has several different property management companies that they've instructed across their portfolios. At least
Mm,
10 buildings, because then they have a certain size that you have this problem as well. The problem is even bigger uh, if the landlord is actually based in a different country, because then you have less insight into what happens to your buildings.
mm,
And but yeah, the platform works for every actor in the industry, but you just see that the pain point is much higher at specific clients than others.
got it. And where do these landlords hang out? Like, how do you prospect them?
Well,
Like,
I think before Brexit, the London was the financial center of Europe, and the sort of the Champions League of the real estate industry, the finance industry. But after Brexit, a lot of it moved to Amsterdam, Paris, Munich, or Frankfurt. So it's much more diverse nowadays.
mhm,
But yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of big investors in Europe, and also from the United States and in Europe that invest in real estate, and they all want to have data, and they all want to know what's going on, and we all have the same problem: is that we want to make our, our buildings sustainable,
right.
and that's eventually, if you look back at like who is actually doing the work, the
Mm,
manager.
right.
So, in my view, the best companies that will win is the best investor who works closest together with their property managers,
Got it.
because they can actually get they can get much more done than others.
Got it. Now, so I'm asking a very dumb question here, since I'm not familiar to this industry. How do you find these investors? Like, where do they hang out? Which are the channels that you use? Are they through conferences, or which
Yeah,
are?
definitely through conferences as well. But I was working as a investment agent for Savills in Amsterdam first, so that's how you get a network in this industry. But yeah, it's networking.
Mm,
It's you've got different news websites as well, but if you're an investment agent for a year, basically every investor in the industry,
mm,
like the big ones at least by
right.
name, and then in every country you have conferences like the real estate fair. So in the Netherlands, that's Provada. In the UK, you have conferences for every single sector actually. So you've got a retail conference, you've got an office conference, you've got a
Right.
proptech conference.
Right.
In Germany, it's what is it? Expo Real, and then you've got MIPIM in France.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are lots of them, and
And
you have to be at every one single one of them. So yeah.
got it. And you mentioned of the ideal customer profile. So your ideal customers size, how big would they like? Do they have to have multiple owning multiple buildings or something of that sort,
Yeah,
or
so if you're only managing like 4 or 5 buildings, then your problem, you can oversee that yourself, right? It's
Hmm,
you know what's going on, and these buildings inside out. The larger your portfolio gets, and especially if you're based in another country, you're managing funds, and you don't go to the building that often, you are heavily reliant on a third party property manager, and
got
they do the work for you. So then the question is, how do you collaborate with your property manager?
got it. Got it. And what's your price point? What's the business model like? How do you monetize? Is it a subscription licenses, or is it a fixed
Yeah, it's
price?
a typical SaaS company, right? So we're it's a subscription per square meter a year. Fully dependent on what kind of sector it is. I think most of the platforms out there use the same model actually. So also, I think most of the property management companies are moving away from user based subscriptions to building subscriptions, because it makes a lot more sense. But Um, yeah, that's basically how it works.
User versus building. These are the two models available in the market today, is it?
I think so, but we definitely never wanted to have a user model because we focus on collaboration between these two stakeholders. So we want to have as many stakeholders on the platform. So if you have a user per a fee per user model, then you actually the pricing model is negative to your own growth,
Yeah,
basically.
it's introducing friction there for adoption.
Exactly. So we say, look, you can have as many stakeholders on there, and our access management works in such a way that it's super detailed. You can have an unlimited amount of roles, and every role you can say this role can have this amount of data, or like this point of data. They can delete it, they can change it, they can see it, and that's why you always are secure and in control that there are no people that see the wrong things.
Right.
And that's really important. It took us a long time to build it in such a way, to be honest.
Excellent. So since this is a business podcast, so one of the sections I often ask, and our listeners are also often interested to learn from other successful founders and entrepreneurs, is mostly growth strategies, right? Everybody has a growth pain. So maybe you could talk about your current business size, okay? How many customers you have got, and how did you evolve, and then what kind of growth strategies have worked for you to scale your business? Is it through promotions, through partnerships, through maybe shed some light there on your growth, and then on your current size of business, and how did you achieve that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So currently, there are 14 of us in the company. There's from the top of my head, approximately 10 million square meters, so over 100 million square feet of real estate managed through the system. I think we're nearly 2,000 buildings on the platform. Yeah, I think that's where we are. But what we really found was that we started out with just finding the right clients that experience the same problem. You can have an ideal target client, but the person at that company that you would be selling to is actually not experiencing that problem yet, or maybe they solve it in a different way. So we found like the landlords that actually had the same problem, and we managed to convince them to be the first. Then after a while, like for us, the real growth is in these partnerships with property management companies themselves, because eventually we're elevating them to have a digital business model towards their clients.
Right.
So they don't want to send Excel files to their clients either, right? So if you're one of three property management companies working for the same client, and your service is entirely different to your client than all the other property management companies, you really stand out. And they do that through us. So these partnerships work really well for us, because we just signed a new property management company called Square 4 in the Netherlands. They have an amazing service already. They've got a ton of fantastic clients, and they onboard over 2 million square meters of real estate in one go. So that's really exciting, and that's how you really make steps.
Excellent. Next one is let's talk about this entire ecosystem and this how this space is evolving. You mentioned there are no other players solving this, or would that be okay? Or
I
are
think
there upcoming players who are competing head on with you exactly on the problem that you're solving?
I don't know how the space will be evolving. Like what we will be focusing on is just the collaboration part, and there's so much more you can do. Our roadmap is really full, but what I really hope that will change in the industry, and that I think a lot of startup founders find, is that a lot of the data is locked within these all legacy property management systems like a Yardi, REMS, or MRI, and they don't integrate too easily. So there's so much data locked within those platforms, and if you start brainstorming like half an hour about all the possibilities, what to do with that data, and what services to deliver to those clients, and how to help make this industry much more efficient or move towards a much more sustainable industry, there's a lot of it possible, but the difficulty is that you don't have access to that data. So what I really hope is that there will be a platform that actually makes it easy to develop upon your platform and develop upon your data. A bit in the way that Facebook did when they started out their social network. The difference with them and MySpace was one that they had open APIs and they really worked well together with different development companies. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in the real estate industry, and it's a really big industry. And we have a big responsibility as well, because we account for approximately 40% of all CO2 emissions in the entire world. So there need to be a big shift, and there need to be there will be a lot of invested in this entire industry just to become sustainable. And the way how we're going to do that, how we're going to collaborate to do that, it's a difficult one. Yeah.
So you mentioned the potential is immense, okay, and then it depends upon your appetite on how much value you can capture. So what's your plan like from this potential? Like, do you want to venture into new geographies, or do you want to penetrate even more in existing geographies? What's your plan like?
Well, we're currently really focused on our existing clients, our existing geographies, but we really want to expand with our clients to new countries. So we want to expand with colliers to their new countries as well. So they're working across the entire of Europe. There are different pan-European clients we're speaking to already that invest across the entire of Europe. So that's definitely one thing, but I think you should. The difficulty is there are so many distractions out there to shift your focus, and you should just stay really focused on what you're doing that really well, and then the steps after that will come. And for us, that's really making sure that the collaboration is going really well in this one platform, and then eventually we can even expand to new stakeholders. So currently we're focused on the owner and the property manager, but the next stakeholder that we want to add is the tenant, and that's actually something we're working on already. So over coming months, we have exciting news with a whole new functionality and adding that new stakeholder into the platform. It really is about keeping your focus instead of trying to grow absolutely everywhere.
That's a very, very important point, right? Because opportunities are everywhere, and as a CEO, you can always the next shiny object syndrome is something that most visionaries have. It's good to have, because that's how you stay paranoid, and that's how you survive. But sometimes it is a double-edged sword, right? Because then you are spreading yourself thin and you're not focused. So what you are saying is you rather become known for your existing use cases as the strongest player in the market, and then stretch beyond that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you said there is so much to do on the roadmap. That's always a good problem to have. So what do you have on the roadmap for the next year or so? So other than the tenant, just introducing a new tenant profile.
Yeah, so that's So one of the things that we do, for instance, is like compliance across your buildings, right? Like, how do you know that your building is compliant to all local regulation? So it has the lift being certified, fire safety, all these things, roof safety. There are loads of things that you have to have proof that it's been checked, and that constantly needs to be done every couple of months or every year for every building. And that's a really annoying pain point for property managers to keep track of. So we build like a management system of that automates most of it, and that once you've got all the data in the system, it's really easy to stay ahead, to keep it up to date. But the problem is, how do you get all the data into the system? So one of the exciting things that we have on the roadmap is to automatically scan documents. We grab the data like with AI into the system, when we automatically say, okay, this is a lift certification because we've seen this before. It's in the same format. The data is here. It's been done by this supplier, and we get all the data into the system automatically. And I think that will alleviate, like, even if you approximately for every building, you need like 30 certificates, like an office building, right? You need 30 certificates to be compliant, and then probably 15 of those are legally required, but you have many more. So if you can have 50% of all those certificates automatically being grabbed into the system, being put in the right space, I think that will save a lot of time for property managers, for us, but everyone in the industry. And then the rest of the 50%, we either have to do by hand now, and we just try to get that percentage up every year.
Excellent. My next question is again my favorite one, especially entrepreneurs who go through a roller coaster ride of building a startup, right? There is always the highs and the lows, and it's always a great opportunity to learn from both the highs and the lows. So which have been your biggest challenges in the journey, and which were the biggest wins and highs for you?
I think one of the challenges has always been like, how do you communicate well what we do, why we're here, and how to solve it, right? So I think communication is really important in that part, and that's I always found that difficult, because you're selling the same platform, you're solving a certain problem, but you can communicate it in 10 different ways or 100 different ways, and I think you should always try to iterate on that messaging, right? Because the market changes, the people change, the problem changes, you change, everything changes constantly. So you just need to stay ahead on how do you communicate what you do and why you're here, and what to do. I think one of the biggest wins for the company, but also I think one of the strengths that I have personally is just to excite people to work on this problem, to work in our company. So especially in the beginning, you don't have anything. You're a startup. You don't have anything. You only have your experience. So it's all about the founding team. It's all about the people that work in your company and their experience, and investors will believe you and they will give you trust. So yeah, I think we're very lucky that we managed to get the right people into the company, and I still say recently, but it's already 5 months in. Yeah, Misha Smith joined us, and he has a ton of knowledge, a ton of experience. He helped exit like a very experienced startup or scale up back then to be sold, and I'm very happy that he's in the team, and I learn every day from him as well. Yeah, so
I exchanged some messages. He was the one who connected also with you, and he very, very passionate is what I found when I interacted with him. Excellent. My last question here is, what kind of investor interest has been in this industry? Like maybe your fundraising story first, and then maybe you can talk about what is the kind of investor interest in this space overall.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, like, building a software platform is expensive, right? So I couldn't finance it all by myself up front. You need to invest quite a bit of money before you can sell the platform. So we managed to raise from tech entrepreneurs that started their own VC, friends with a bit of money who were working as a banker in London. Clients that really believed in how we solved the problem. So they said, okay, we want to become a client, but we also want to invest in your company. I think that really shows, the confidence in our product and team and what we do. And recently we've raised again from a venture capital firm. But yeah, to do that, we basically had to knock on every single door in Europe. There are a lot of PropTech VCs out there, but I think a lot of them are looking at this space as okay, well, there is property management software out there already, so why another platform? And I fully disagree with that, because we are solving a very specific pain point in the entire industry, and it fits on every single investor's plate. And it's we found Blackfinch Ventures as our investor, and they really believed in the partnership sales approach. And they give us the time to do that as well, and they're really supportive in that. So that was really it found to be a really good match for us. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, this brings us to the end of a very, very fascinating conversation with Bao. Bao, thank you for your time and sharing your wealth of knowledge, your experience. I'm sure our listeners and other entrepreneurs will draw a lot of wisdom from this conversation. So, thank you, and I appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Ravi. Yeah, found it really interesting and exciting to do, and speak to you soon again.
See you around, Bao. Bye bye.
Cheers.